Hey guys, Bittersteel here, back with another video, and we're taking another look at the dev diaries for the upcoming patch. And today, the day the veil is lifted once more, and we're having a look at Poland. Apparently Poland is one of the nations that is now confirmed to receive an update, and they are doing a great job of that update, I think, because they can't even fit it into a single dev diary. So let's dive right in. They start off by mentioning that Poland is one of the most popular miners to play, about as popular as Spain, which is considered one of the big ones. It's even more popular than Greece, which got a lot of love from the devs, so I hope they will put their heart and soul into this new focus tree. Let's see what they've made. And right off, when you see the nation selection screen they've snipped for us here, there are a bunch of new icons that look very, very interesting. And that is the proposed, everything here is subject to change, of course, but this is the proposed new focus tree for Poland. Yeah, they've snipped out some stuff that is super secret future stuff, which I assume we'll get in the next dev diary. But look at the size of that thing and compare it to Poland's current focus tree, and oh boy, they put a lot of love in this. I hope it's not all garbage, time will tell, but it does look very, very interesting. And first off is the industrial branch of the tree. In the old tree, the player would have to go through a lot of pretty terrible focuses just to get a couple of factories, and many of those focuses have now been updated to provide extra bonuses and extra factories. But the devs state this tree is not just about getting free factories. To simulate Poland being on a very tight schedule and having to use her resources well, many of these new industrial focuses grant powerful temporary bonuses towards things like consumer goods and construction speed. So timing will be key to get the most out of these national spirits for the time that you have them. Roughly 720 days, which is still a relatively long time. So it looks like Poland played well, can ramp up real strong to face off the Germans or the Soviets, or both. But of course, there's more than just industry. To simulate Poland being a nation with a spot of trouble in 1936, they have added in a few events. One of them is the Peasant strike. This is tied into the fact that the Polish railway network was, well, pretty shit. And by that I mean they had 3 different networks they inherited from their former occupiers that weren't linked together. They couldn't operate trains across the entire network because everything used different standards. And as a result, Poland's economy, supply, and agriculture really suffered. And as a result, the peasants were being uppity. So until you reform those railways and do something about it, you run the real risk of a peasant uprising, which actually happened in our timeline. And to deal with that, Poland will have the option of cracking down on these peasants and building up the railways, but not much is known about that just yet. But you will have the option to link your entire rail network and turn it into something a little more modern. That said, failing to reform anything at all and just ignoring the problem is going to net you something that looks like this. Yeah. That green Polish peasant union, not something you want if you're on the clock to face off the Germans and or the Soviets, so you might want to avoid this civil war. It looks quite spicy. And because Poland needs more trouble, they have gone and touched up the Danzig issue. They have turned Danzig into the free city of Danzig, Gdansk. Because it was in a rather unique situation, it was officially owned by no one. It was a Polish protectorate and an international city run by the League of Nations. So to simulate that, Poland is not completely in control of Danzig. That is to say, Danzig isn't independent, but it is considered a demilitarized area like the Rhineland. Poland cannot station troops there, and because by this point in the game, 1936, government of the city had effectively been taken over by the Nazi regime, they were strangling Polish trade. That is to say, they embargoed Poland, and Danzig is Poland's only port. So Poland begins the game with the embargoed economy trade law, a bit like undisturbed isolation like the US, but not that bad. It's bad, but not that bad. And in order to remove it, Poland must either build a new port to work around Danzig, capture a new port to work around Danzig, so go and take someone else's port, or clamp down on Danzig. Like here, you can develop Polish shipbuilding and work your way through the left branch of the tree, where you effectively decide to, fine, we'll build our own port with blackjack, and women of the night, or you clamp down on Danzig and just go in there and show them who's boss. And again, it's going to be an interesting choice which way you go, but I am very much looking forward to this. It adds a lot of character to Danzig. Instead of just being the spark that sets off the world in the game, now there's actually some leading up to it. And because all things require not only a PP sync, but also a command power sync now, Poland will have to seize control of Danzig and handle the resistance through the decisions tab with unification propaganda, military appeasement, raids, etc, etc. Poland, let's say, is probably not going to be swimming in PP. And if you fail to do that, you run the risk of Danzig rising up as an independent country with its own military. And if you're not able to stamp that out in time, well, they might just decide to defect to Germany. I very much wonder how that's going to affect the game, since Danzig or Gdansk was the reason World War II kicked off in the first place, but we'll see, we'll see. And another major part of the Polish focus tree is going to be the prepare for the next war branch, which has been expanded quite considerably since they originally implemented it, and Poland will have access to two plans, East and West, to effectively fight the USSR and the Reich. Historically, Poland decided the Soviets were the bigger threat, which I can understand, considering Poland did fight the Soviets in the 20s, I believe. So a historical Poland will choose that branch first, but hey, we know better. So as a player, you might want to prepare Plan West first. And these plans are targeted towards building up forts and other fortifications along those respective borders. And the catch here is, you start Plan West, you have to finish it before you can start Plan East. You don't have to take every branch of the tree. However, if you don't and you finish complete that respective plan, you cannot take whatever you skipped. That's gone, that is past us, and we're not looking back. So choices will have to be made. I don't know if they're going to be 70-day focuses or 30-day focuses or shorter. Considering the amount of focuses, I think we'll have a lot of short focuses, but time will tell. Poland will have many things to do before 1939. That much is clear. And because no focus tree is complete without a political branch, let's take a look at the political branch that they have decided to tease us with, and it looks juicy. Look at that. That looks pretty nice. And the super secret stuff here on the right, I'm very much looking forward to that. But let's see what they have for us first. It looks like a balance will have to be struck between several factions within Poland. The Sand Nation left, the Sand Nation right, and the castle. Now, Poland at this time was very much a dictatorship, with power being divided by these several factions. So how you handle that will probably determine just how well you'll do. If you favor one too much, the others might not like that. And if you favor none of them, well, none of them are going to like you in the long run. So you will have to walk a tightrope and really think about which path you will take. Each branch has a series of focuses that can be completed for various bonuses, and you don't really have to commit to either faction right away, and you can pick and choose and get you the most benefit. But the longer you take to form a consolidated government, the less time you're gonna have for other things like industry or your war plans. So you'll have to make choices. I think Poland is going to be all about making choices. Now, the path they are teasing in this developer diary is also the historical path for Poland, called the April Constitution. Essentially, you can consider it the constitution of the Polish dictatorship at the time, and it starts out fairly weak, but through some collaborations with the left, the right, and the mighty center, you will become more and more powerful. Downside to that is you will have to balance it very carefully. If you pick the right too often, the left's gonna get annoyed. If you pick the left too often, the right's gonna get annoyed. And if you pick neither and stick to the center, well, everybody's gonna get annoyed. And when everybody's getting annoyed, well, you're going to get some nasty debuffs here. Doesn't look like Poland needs these while they're preparing to fight two major powers at the same time. No. And the way to appease these factions will be through taking the focuses associated with their respective branches and giving them more power that way. Every focus for the left you take will make the right irritated and vice versa. Plus, they will both passively gain that irritation over time. So if you take too long without really picking a side, you risk losing both to civil wars. So with the amount of civil wars that Poland can rack up, we're looking at a firm contender for Spain or Mexico if this country is played poorly. Which is interesting. World could use some more civil wars, I guess. And depending on how much power you give either side, it is possible for the left or the right to supersede the central dictatorship, known as the castle, and become majority controller of the government, enabling a little bit of light alt history within the historical branch and giving you some new diplomacy options. We'll look at those in a bit. But these are the two leaders that you could get access to, either Edward Rydzmigli or Walery Szlawek. I apologize for butchering those names, I'm not good with Polish. And regardless of whoever wins this political game of chess, Poland will always have access to the Align with the West branch, which will allow Poland to join the Allies as they have, well, always been using their old tree. So it shouldn't break the game on historical too much. We'll see, we'll see. And now for the spicy alt history. This pretty much confirms it. Poland will be able to restore the Commonwealth. Apparently in the 30s, Lithuania was technically still at war with Poland until about 1938. And the game will allow you to go one step further. You can either negotiate over some cooperation and alliances, and, you know, become friends, etc. Poland can also just straight up demand Lithuania's annexation, which can result in just occupying Lithuania without a shot fired. And that opens you up to a whole host of new scenarios that you can move forward with, especially those cores, those juicy cores that you can take from the Soviet Union. They've also gone and changed the way the Romanian bridgehead strategy works now, and this will allow Poland to drag or invite Romania to the Allies instead of forming the Between the Seas faction with just Romania, which usually doesn't really work out all that well. This will allow Poland to drag the Romanians into the Allies and trying to use them to really bolster that front line, giving Poland a fighting chance. So it opens up a whole host of new opportunities, and it looks very, very interesting. I think this is a much better way of doing things than it is now, where just Poland and Romania form an alliance, and that's it. It's just two miners who are both going to get their teeth kicked in by the big boys. And when we continue down the tree, the Polish revanchism has been reworked, and it's now exclusively available if the Stagnation Right takes control, and it's been expanded into its own full branch. So a lot of that stuff wasn't in there, and it also makes you able to demand the annexation of Lithuania, pursue the restoration of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and even try and get that Polish-Czechoslovak Confederation going. Pretty ambitious goals, very interesting. I wonder where that goes. On the other side of the political spectrum, the Stagnation Left has access to the expanded Baltic Alliance path, and that allows them to make alliances with the other Baltic states, the Czechoslovaks and the Romanians, and it also unlocks the more expanded Between the Seas branch. It's that very weirdly named Polish faction, Mizdemorja. I don't know how to pronounce that, sorry. And the final stopping point for the political tree, at least on the historical side, is the new and improved Between the Seas concept. Now, in the current game, it's not much of a faction. It usually ends up just being Poland and the Baltics, and it tends to just fall over real quickly. This time, they've gone a different approach, and the first country to be invited is Romania, making it already a little bit tougher. The Romanian army is quite sizable, and combined with Poland's, they are actually a force to be reckoned with. Maybe. And by the looks of this snippet they've provided, it appears that the faction can become quite powerful. We have the Nordics in there, we have the Finns, the Czechoslovaks, the Yugoslavs, and even all the way at the bottom there, the Italian alliance. I'm very interested how this will work. And regarding that, there's a little snippet down here that might be interesting to some. Though unlikely, an Italian alliance is not out of the question for Poland here, but some significant change in policy for either nation would be necessary to tempt the Italians away from the Axis. So what I'm hoping for here is that this is a teeny tiny teaser to perhaps a little bit of an update to the Italian tree. I know, they said they would not do a full-fledged Italian tree this DLC, but maybe, just maybe, this hints at a slight rework to just update that tree a little bit and give Italy some love. So let's all cross our fingers and hope that Italy gets something in this DLC. Now, that's quite the bombshell they end this dev diary with. So Next week they will be taking a look at Poland once more and hopefully unveiling that super secret stuff they were hiding, and it looks like it might be the true alt history path for Poland. I think there are some great options in there, so I hope you will join me next week for another Paradox HoI4 Dev Diary. These have been pretty interesting so far. Now if you like this video, leave a like, consider subscribing and hit that bell icon to be notified whenever I upload more content. If you didn't like it, that's fine. Just hit me up in the comments, tell me what I did wrong. Always looking to improve. And while you're in the comments, what do you think Paradox is going to do with the Polish alt history tree? It's very interesting and I am super curious. Anyway, this has been me, Bittersteel, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye.